Exactly, yeah.
But isn't it also being flexible enough to be realistic and see, well, maybe this isn't really where I want to go because I can't dedicate my whole life to, oh, maybe now from going that way, I see a better path, and now it's just part of my journey.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that would be a positive way to interpret it, right? Hey, it's part of my journey.
Because I wouldn't know about this
Yeah.
other goal if I hadn't started this goal.
Exactly.
And so maybe it's not even a giving up, it's just a flexibility, a regrouping and thinking, oh, I can do this instead, this would be better.
Mhm.
I don't know,
That-
depends on how you're,
That's how you can say it in a good way, but it is a
Right.
gray area of like,
yeah.
when is it actually wise to,
Give up.
to give up on that goal and then maybe to pick another one?
Yeah, no, I see that part.
Re-goaling, it feels to me it's being proactive. Plan A didn't work and I have plan B. So I'm not stopping there. I'm not letting that hope stopping me from achieving plan A. I switched to plan B. Not something major, but something like always have that plan.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. It's not that you have no goal at all. It's that you have an.
And of course, what he said is a great point, a gray area. A gray area probably discovery about ourselves. What do we lack there that we didn't achieve that A, if we acknowledge it and accept it and move on to plan B, or acknowledge it, accept it, and work on it to achieve plan A.
It's sort of like a detour kind of thing. It's not that you lose sight of the goal or that you even give up on it. You just go in a different direction temporarily. And most of the time, at least personally for me, the direction that I go in, it's very useful and it's another piece to the puzzle on my journey towards the goal. So I don't see it as that. It's like either or, plan A, B is a detour.
That'd be good. Yeah. All right. The way you guys are talking.
The same.
Yeah, you're still on the
You're
same
getting to
goal.
the goal.
Yeah.
All right, great. So then there's some related constructs of hope. Wishing we talked about. Then we have self-esteem, grit, mindset. Who has sort of a growth mindset? Yeah, somebody, right? There's just this distinction between fixed mindset and growth mindset, which is really great research. Fixed mindset basically is the attitude that you think that talents are fixed and intelligence are fixed, right? Whereas the growth mindset is you think you can improve, you think you can do better. And for example, one study was really interesting. They had randomly assigned students to two different groups. One of the groups, they said, your intelligence is fixed. We've got a test to measure it, so please take this test. And the other group, they said, intelligence is something that varies and that you can work on. It's like a muscle. Here's a test that measures that. Right? And people were randomly assigned to these two groups. Guess which groups had higher IQ scores? Right, the ones that will say, hey, it's something flexible, right? And it just shows, it's really weird that attitude and all that, it influences so much of the way that we perform, the way that we behave. And this growth mindset research now tries to involve that much more in the schools as well and in life in general. Right? If you imagine what counselors, when you work with clients, right? If you have a growth mindset, I mean, it's much better than, a lot of times that's one of your jobs, right? Is persuade people not like, oh, I'm dumb, I can't do it, and so forth, right? To making them, hey, let's see what you can achieve, and self-esteem would be related to that, right? Confidence in ourselves. Maybe you've heard of self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is really close to hope. And in optimism is just a more general sense of, future is going to be positive. I'm not going to go too much into that, but the way, because I talked about grit and hope, the way grit is defined, it's basically like hope, but on a very long-term goal. So for you guys to finish your degree, you need grit, right? Or, establish world peace, we need a lot of grit. Or finding a cancer cure, you probably need a lot of grit, right? You need to keep going. And hopefully you can do it within a year or less, right? Maybe you have a brilliant insight, but a lot of times, yeah, I wish. You hope that you had it, right? So let me first talk. I'm giving you a little bit of I gotta hurry up. So anyways, these guys, Lopez and colleagues, they found that hope is a better predictor of success in the academic environment than IQ, prior grades, SAT and ACT scores, and socioeconomic status. Right? So Tony, we should chat, right? Because that's the stuff that usually you look at. And now I just seen that the provost is going to have a public discussions about, how, because we have too many applicants, how do we pick applicants, right? So I would say, you shouldn't just look at that kind of stuff. You should look at how motivated are people, how much passion they have for what they want to study, right? Maybe there's people passionate about counseling and they've never had a counseling class in their lives and school was boring to them and they didn't excel academically, but they will be awesome counselors. Right? So anyways, how can hope predict student success? Right? We know one of the best predictors of future performance is past performance. Right? And then we also know that hope predicts future performance. And now we know that hope might be a better indicator for your potential than actual past performance, because it has more of a growth perspective in it. So here, this is my hometown in Freiburg in Switzerland. That's where I'm from originally. You see, this is the old part of the town. There's newer buildings around, but they're not as nice. They're a little bit ugly, so I just showed this one. That's a sightseeing picture. And the research I show you guys is from the region around that, but then also from the whole Switzerland. So that's just kind of give you some idea. In Switzerland, we have the education system is a little bit different than here. You have preschool, 3 years, potentially. Then when kids are 5 to 6 year old, they enter primary school. And then we have 6 years of primary school, elementary school, and then we have 3 years of middle school. But then you're done with the compulsory education. So basically 9 years you have to go to school, and then you can do whatever you want, really. However, most kids go either into vocational training, about 50%, or into courses that prepare you to go to university. These are what's called baccalaureates. So you could say, it's just a 4-year program. I don't want to say it's like a community college, but it's just, before you go to university, you have to go to these schools, or you do an apprenticeship program for 3 to 4 years, and then 1 more year of preparatory courses to go to university. And vocational training is really highly regarded. It's, when you hear here, sometimes you have to watch out by vocational training. Sometimes it has not too good of a reputation. But in Switzerland, that's really a viable option, and the youth unemployment is like 3%. Yeah, and the overall unemployment is also around 3%. So youth, yeah, they get trained really well. They know their stuff, and let's say a person that does a mechanical apprenticeship over here in the United States, they will be almost like an engineer. They know so much stuff. It's really interesting. So just this to give you a little bit of background, and we're going to be looking at 6th graders, the hope of 6th graders, and what they think about life. And then we're going to jump into some apprentices here and see how hope helps them perform at the workplace. Because these guys, they actually work 3 to 4 days in a company, on-the-job training, or actually really work, and they're in school maybe 1 or 2 days in a vocational training school. So, and please interrupt me if you have questions. I'm going to go over this a little bit quickly, okay? so that we have discussion, because I want to talk about the American dream, right? That's what I'm interested to hear from you guys. So we said, hey, how does hope predict reading achievement and reading motivation? Okay. So I'm just going to jump over that because I'm going to talk to you about this. And now don't be shocked for these numbers, right? Those that have the stats class already, you can read this. I'm going to go over it slowly. This is what is called a regression. And what we're trying, we use these variables to predict their grade, the German test grade at the end of the 6th grade. Okay? And these numbers here are regression coefficients, and they could be between -1 and +1. That's where the range you have, right? And the closer this number is to 1, the higher the relationship between, for example, gender and the German test is. So let's say we have, and then if it has a little star, it means it's statistically significant. That means there's a good chance that this coefficient is different from 0. So basically, if there's no star, you say, hey, there's nothing there. But if there's stars, then okay, there's something there. And then we can start interpreting what this number means. So let's say here, we got 53. So that's the highest of all these numbers, which it means that the relationship between the reading test and the German test is around 0.5. So kids that have a high reading test in 5th grade also tend to have a high reading test in 6th grade. Okay, and then we have in the bottom here the R squared, that's the explained variance. This could be at the most 1, goes from 0 to 1. 0 means, you know what, all these variables, they don't help you to predict anything. Or if you have a 1, to say, hey, if you take all these variables, you know exactly what the grade's going to be. And so 50 is like, you know, about half, which in social science is excellent. That's really great. So, right, you could say, okay, since you know the reading test in grade 5th grade, well, you know, we knew that kids that do well in 5th grade, they're probably going to do well in 6th grade. So far, so good. Then we looked at language, right? 1 stands for German, so if you're German, you have a small positive relationship to the German test. So that basically means German is like English here, right? If you have the native language at home, you have a little bit higher reading grades. Gender, now it's a negative, right? 1 is male, 0 is female. So we have a negative coefficient. That means if you're a male, you have a negative relationship to German test, means you have a little bit lower German test grade. So just to explain it out, if you're a boy, you have a lower grade. If you speak the national language, you have a higher reading grade. SES is the socioeconomic status. So basically, if your parents are a little bit richer, I'm simplifying here. It's about we coded the job of their parents. So if your parent is a doctor or a lawyer, you're going to have a high socioeconomic status. If your parents are, let's say, construction workers, or they are the paper boy type jobs, then they have a lower socioeconomic status. That's just like an international scale, and it doesn't really work out because in some, like in Switzerland, teachers would have a high socioeconomic status, whereas in the US, they would rank a little bit lower, right? So anyways, that goes a lot in details, but what we can learn is if you're from a higher socioeconomic background, you tend to have a little bit higher reading grades as well. Then the CFT is an IQ test, so you tend to have a little bit higher grades as well. And then here comes hope. And hope is about, it's pretty strong, like it's the second one after your grade. And if we throw all of this the same time in there in the equation, we could say everything else being equal, if you're more hopeful, you have higher reading grades. And that's pretty cool because usually IQ would explain a lot, grades should explain a lot, all these others should explain most of it. But then comes this hope, and it helps us explain even more. So that's pretty cool. And then we have another thing for the reading anxiety and reading enjoyment, right? Because this is about reading. And then you see, if we add these two, right, if you're more anxious, then it's negative. So more anxious, you have a lower grade, right? Makes sense. And if you enjoy reading more, then you have a higher grade. And you see how hope goes down from 0.34 to 0.10. So if you know more about the exact motivation of people, that knowing what hope they have is of less value, but still it helps you. Right? Any question about this? Does it make sense the way I explained it? If you know, if you feel it's overwhelming, let me know. You can feel free to get in touch. I can explain that a little bit more in detail. But basic message is, even if you know a lot of motivational variables, hope still gives you a little bit more information. And the next one, and I'm just gonna skip over this. I had this table here just in German. So basically, after the 6th grade, the kids go into the middle school, right? They have 3 more years of school left, and that's a tracked system. So there's track A, B, and C, and now you have, and it's based on achievement, right? So if you're gonna go, if people think, oh, this person's gonna go to college, they put you in track A. If they think, yeah, they might go in college, but probably they're also gonna go into vocational training, probably gonna be in track B. And if they think, well, this person for sure is gonna go, is not, you know, that academically inclined, you're gonna be in track C. And the idea is to, you know, help you out as much as you can to really help people basically create a learning environment where you are developing ideally, right? And there's a lot of debate around that, and I don't necessarily agree with that system. But once you know that this is a system, then you have to figure out, well, how do we send kids to the different tracks, right? How do we make that fair? I'm just going to go really quick. I'm going to skip over this. And here is the same basic message that we just said. Similar model, right? We control for socioeconomic status. We control for reading grades. And what you see is, if you have higher hope, your teacher's going to give you a little bit of higher recommendation. Everything else is the same, right? If you have higher hope, your parents are going to give you a higher recommendation. And if you higher hope, well, guess what? On the test score, it doesn't help you a lot. So I was thinking that would help you too, but actually no. The test, the standardized test, you could be very hopeful, and I don't know why. That's a little bit against what I told you guys earlier, right? But that's it. But your teachers and parents, they somehow kind of sense how hopeful you are. And then if you look at the actual decision, yeah, their hope comes through, and that's logical because the decision is based on your test score and then what people recommend. All right, so I'm gonna hurry up. All right, now you want to know, what do you think? What kind of career aspiration do these 6th graders have? Does it depend on their, you know, how they do in school? How does it relate to their hope in general? What do you guys think?
On their parents.
On their
My
parents?
5th graders,
They want to do what the parents do?
The parents do.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, huh? So what we did is we asked these 5th graders, hey, which occupation will you have when you're 30 years old? What are you going to be? You know, what do you do? And what we found indeed is a lot of them, they just basically tell you, I'll do what my parents do. But we wanted to know a little bit more in detail. And now this looks a little bit confusing, but if you, let's work backwards, right? This is the socioeconomic status of the aspiration, right? So let's say if a person says, I want to be a lawyer or I want to be a pilot, then they're pretty high here. If they say, you know, I'm going to be a farmer, then they're going to be pretty low. Although here in the valley, that might be a different story, right? In Switzerland, farmers are generally a little smaller, and they're poor and whatnot. Anyways, and now we looked at how is, for example, gender or language, how is that related to their aspiration? So if you see a dotted line, that means there's no relation. But if you see a solid line, it means there is a relationship. So let's say if you're a German speaker, then you tend to have a lower aspiration. If the socioeconomic, and that's everything else being the same. If you're if your socioeconomic status is high, well, your aspirations tend to be higher too, right? And what we noticed is, right, if you look at grades in school and standardized tests, there's no direct relationships, right? What you can see is that it goes on hope, right? If you have higher grades, you tend to have higher hope, and then hope in turn is related to higher aspirations. Okay, so that's one thing that we learned is that higher hopes is related to higher aspirations, makes sense. What's interesting is that your grades actually influence your hope, and then your hope in turn influences your aspirations. And really quick, this is the last study I want to show you guys. This is about when they're over here in vocational training. And here is, I'm going to go back so you can ignore this. What we looked at, the training a grade after 2 years, they have a big test, and then after 4 years they have their final grade. Right? And then we looked at the GHQ, that's a general mental health questionnaire. And I was curious, how is mental health related to hope? And how is hope related to the final grade? And you see here again dotted lines. I thought that hope would affect mental health, but it didn't. That was kind of weird. I don't know why it happened. But what you can see here, if you had a higher grade in the mid-training, you had higher mental health down the road. You didn't have higher hope though. But then in turn here, for the final grade, if you had the same grade after 2 years, but you had higher hope, then your grade was higher at the end. So again, this beneficial effect of even if you are doing quite well, if you have more hope, you can do even better. And conversely, if you don't do too well, but you have high hope, you might do better. So far, right, we've seen the grades of the 6th graders are related to hope. The evaluations of adults are related to hope. The aspirations are related to hope. And then you have actually positive impact of hope on the performance on the job. Right, so how the heck do you get the people that have hope? And you know what, I'm going to kind of cut this short. One idea is, who knows about the self-determination theory, Deacon Ryan? Maybe you've heard of it. I think it's a really cool idea. It's a really good, helpful theory. And basically says that we have 3 basic human needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Autonomy is that you're able to make your own decisions. Competence is that you know how to do certain things, that you feel that you have skills. And relatedness is that you have a connection to others. And if you have all these, then you tend to have higher hope. And we looked in a study and found that this is actually the case. And here the highest one is competence, and shows that the more competent people feel, the more hopeful they tend to be. So now here is my question, and gosh, we don't have that much time, but I hope you can stick around for a little bit. How can you promote hope in disadvantaged populations? And how can we avoid blaming the victim, right? Because this research suggests, well, people just need to be hopeful. They need to work harder, and they could get it. They don't need to be the smartest. They don't need to be the most talented. But if they put effort in, the hard work, then they can reach it. And what role do you see for a counseling profession, knowing now these results, and you might have had an idea before? So I'm curious, what is your guys' take on, does that happen, like blaming the victim? Have you heard that, oh, these people, they just need to work harder and they could do it? That's kind of what Dr. Rahim was mentioning this morning again, one form of racism, right? To say, hey, my ancestors had it bad, looking where they're at, so that kind of thing. What do you guys think?
Well, I think if you have because I think you mentioned on a previous slide something about anticipated obstacles, people being able to sort of overcome those. So if you can get people who probably acknowledge that there are obstacles and think that they're just too much, like that's never gonna change. If you can get them to start thinking in terms of like those, you can overcome those obstacles, that might help with having a hope.
I
Sorry?
agree with you. I think that you speak correctly. When you said the people who are hopeful, how they have certain attributes to them.
Mhm.
I think that if you start maybe implementing some of those attributes about maybe being realistic or make them aware that they can always maybe reroute and that there will be obstacles, you know, you just can't wish for things that maybe they'll start seeing that, like, yeah, you could have hope, you just have to work for it.
I think a missing link in a lot of the education is definiteness of purpose. I think that's the key to having hope. Because a lot of times you're shuffled into school and this is what you do. You know, finish high school, now you have to do college. Finish college, now you have to do your master's. Just a thing to do. But it's not really, okay, what am I doing my education for? What am I going for? And that gives you the grit, because I think you could be hopeful, but then it's dissipated. Maybe that's why it's so important at the end that you have hope you can improve more, because if you sustain the hope all the way through, like you showed in that, I mean, I think it's just lack of definite purpose in life.
Well, especially if you look at disadvantaged, you know, people, if they just see what they have at home, or what, all the obstacles they have to overcome, and they go into school and there's no one that takes an interest in them, and they don't find any purpose, you know, all they see is pessimism, so what do they have to hope for? They need, I mean, there's research out there too, that if a person finds a mentor, even if they have a bad, you know, experience in their community or home life or whatever, that they can pull themselves up more because they have someone to hope, that gives them hope. I mean, so if someone, you know, if there's other mentors and people that they look up to or respect, that can give them hope, that can also move them forward to their own hope.
Any other comments or questions?
I find that promoting the growth mindset is a central key in this, in purpose as well. A lot of people don't have anybody to say, you know, you're here right now, but doesn't mean you're going to stay here. So I think that should start really early in life. And then if you didn't get it, wherever you are, that should be a major focus. It should be, at least when I think about my life, because I had people at different stages who did that. They poured into me and helped open up that lens that I couldn't see on my own. And then I was able to achieve. Even if I didn't get the best of grades, I still could move it on. And then also that purpose. Somewhere along the way, I got a sense of what my purpose is. And that also allowed me to have the hope that I will achieve it at some point in my life. I don't know, I think that growth mindset is key, really. And people just don't talk to you about it, but anything is possible. It is, it truly is. It's just how you want to look at it and how willing are you to go through whatever to get there. I'm encouraged by this today, a lot, because educators do need to know that that's crucial. It's not just about performance. It's not just about getting the carrot of the A. You can get an A and didn't do anything for you, for your future. So I think we need to really make a turnabout some kind of way. And it's a value for me, it's a value system. Just because you get the 4.0 doesn't mean you're going to do something in society. But Make a change or.
Well, and just the teachers see that potential in every child, not just the ones that get good grades or the ones that are causing the problems, but all of them. That even, you know, this child that they're always talking about to other people, oh, this child has potential, where is it? And how can we help them see that?
I like how you guys bring up that purpose, right? That can energize, that can give you fuel, right? The rocket fuel to pursue, and then if you have difficulties, you can persist. And I think also that sense is to say, hey, what are you using your talents for, right? You can be a very bright person, and you can use that to, you know, do something negative in life. So, just go. All right, well, thank you very much for attending. I hope you have a great rest of the conference. And, you got another comment?
Is there any way you can share your hope?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can email me if you have my email.
Yes, I do.
We would like it. You have my email, right?
Yeah.
Anybody else want it? For the conference?
Thank you.
Good. All right.